Hello, everyone. Glad you could join us again for another webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about the cost of an unsubscribe. You know, as email marketers, this is often the thing that we know is super important, but we don't like to admit maybe our unsubscribe rates, or we don't often dive too deep into this. So we're hoping that the work that the Bluecore Data Insights and Strategy team has done here will help surface some ideas of how you can reduce your unsubscribe rate and help you quantify the loss in revenue or the potential impact that you can make to your bottom line by reducing how many customers are unsubscribing from your email program over time. So we're going to talk through a few things here today. We've done a lot of digging through the data that Bluecore is collecting from over 400 retailers to answer a bunch of questions and then make sure that we're having you guys come away with some actions specifically of how to decrease your unsubscribe rate and how to potentially think about marketing to unsubscribed customers. So on the data side, we're going to talk through a few things, beginning with looking at the types of customers that unsubscribe, and then also seeing when customers unsubscribe. So the idea there is to understand the who and when, so you could better tailor your messaging or pull back on some of your broader emails to reduce that unsubscribe rate. And you'll see that you can make a big impact by doing so. We'll then talk a little bit about the emails that lead to the most unsubscribes, and then quantifying this, right? Putting a value on each customer that unsubscribes from your email campaign. How much is that costing you? And we're going to talk through the methodology of how we got to a number there. And it's a big, scary number there, obviously. So that should help you, as you go back to your campaigns, think about the little changes that you can make and the tweaks that you can make to your program, how you can really impact your business. So to get to these numbers, like I said, we looked through about a year's worth of data from over 400 retailers that we work with here at Bluecore. And in doing so, we were able to observe over 3 million unique unsubscribes. And this is across a lot of various industries, but all retail focused. So majority here are B2C companies. And then we're also fortunate enough to be able to tie those email addresses of those who unsubscribed to their website, browse and purchase behavior, as well as their in-store purchase behavior for the retailers that are passing that offline brick and mortar purchase data over to Bluecore. We're matching those purchases to an email address and then can cross-reference that with their opt-in status, right? So we can see, even though a customer has unsubscribed, we still know the activities that they're taking on site, and we know the purchases that they're making in your stores. So we can compare differences between these two different cohorts of opted in and unsubscribed customers to see and get to a value of an opt-in versus an unsubscribe. So really excited to walk everyone through this here. So to start out, we wanted to look at the types of customers that unsubscribe. So what you're seeing here is a breakdown of non-buyers, so customers who have never made a purchase from your store before, one-time buyers, and multi-time buyers, anyone who's purchased more than one time. And then, like I said, this is cross-channel. So if someone's bought online and in-store, they're going to be a multi-time buyer here. What you see is, huge majority of unsubscribes are coming from people who have never purchased before. So to think about that as a consumer, I may be giving an email address to a brand, maybe to get that welcome offer, or to see the types of content or emails, like the content or the product recommendations that they'll send me over time as I'm looking to make a purchase. You know, I recently moved, so obviously subscribed to a bunch of different furniture brands as I was looking to furnish my new shoebox apartment in New York City. So I didn't need much, but I did need a few pieces. So I was on a bunch of lists, right? But I ended up only buying from like 2 or 3 different stores. And then once my buying cycle was done and I was getting all of these promotional emails that weren't so relevant to me, enough is enough eventually, and you unsubscribe. So I think knowing that majority of unsubscribes are coming from non-buyers really just makes me think as a marketer that you've got to treat these prospective customers differently, right? You can't treat them as one of your loyal customers. If you have the ability to send them personalized messaging, knowing that they've never purchased before, maybe it's instead of saying like, here's a sale on dining chairs, right? It's how to buy from our brand. Here's what you can expect. Here's how you can style your New York apartment. So just tweaking the messaging there and the strategy of talking to these customers differently, knowing that a majority of them probably won't purchase and will unsubscribe, you can start to make impacts on this rate by tapping into that. And this is relevant across all industries, right? So you're looking at, again, the non-buyer, the one-time buyer, and the repeat buyer. On the bottom, majority of jewelry unsubscribes are non-buyers, and then all the way to the right, B2B, still majority non-buyers, but significantly lower, closer to 50%. Toys and goods, sporting goods and footwear, bit of a mix there, but still majority non-buyer. So this is a common problem for all marketers. We then wanted to look at the timing of when customers are unsubscribing. So we first started by looking at all email addresses on a average retailer's lists. So when we look at the count of purchases that people who unsubscribe have made, not surprisingly, since the majority of them are non-buyers, we're looking at 0.25 purchases. So when we pull out the non-buyers and we specifically look at people who have made a purchase and have unsubscribed, that average increases to 1.71. So this is telling me that there are people who have bought 2 or 3 times from your brand that have unsubscribed, but majority of them are one-time buyers. And, you know, we've talked about this a bunch in our one and done buyer problem playbook. And if you came to our summit this year, you know, this was a big topic about talking about how we can convert one-time buyers to become 2-time buyers. There's a ton of benefits in doing so. But here, this is just another indicator that the one-time buyer problem is a problem that still persists. But just interesting to see these parallels here where people who do purchase will do so more than once, but after, you know, they won't get to that hurdle of 2 purchases. So just interesting here to see the breakdown of how many purchases someone will make before an unsubscribe. And this is going to help in our strategy of when and how to message customers differently. We can then look at this in terms of days. So we thought it'd be interesting to look at starting at a starting point of when we capture a customer's email address to when they unsubscribe. So for non-buyers, you've got an average of 47 days from when they sign up to when they unsubscribe, right? So you're looking at about a month and a half. They're checking out your store. They're checking out the products that you're selling. They've probably got a number of different emails here, right? They've probably got triggers, your promo emails. They've got welcome emails coming to them. None of them have convinced that customer to make a purchase. And eventually, you know, they're out of that buying cycle. They're not looking to make a purchase. And they unsubscribe at about 47 days on average. We then looked at for buyers, right? So people who do make a purchase, still a pretty short window here. So 70 days from when someone who made a purchase, from when a purchaser has given you their email address to when they unsubscribe. So you've got another short window here. And we're looking at 49 days for when after a purchase, someone will unsubscribe. So they've bought for the first time from your store. You've got 50 days there until when they unsubscribe. So I think this has a lot to do with relevancy. I think brands are really good at onboarding new prospective customers for that first week or two, right? You've got a good welcome series, some offers, probably a lot of good content geared for that first 2 weeks of a customer's life cycle. But after that, they get looped into those batch promotional emails. And as you can see here, they become irrelevant, and, you know, the customer's attention is lost, and eventually they keep seeing your name in their inbox. They're not opening the emails, and eventually they just go down, scroll through, and click that unsubscribe button. If we look at this on a chart, this is for non-buyers. We wanted to show how this would look just visually. So what you're looking at on the left are the percent of non-buyers that unsubscribe, and then on the bottom are the days since their identification, since they signed up for your list. So 50% of non-buyers are going to unsubscribe at by day 47. You do have some that make it on, you know, for almost eternity there, over 600 days, but majority of them are going to be off your list within 50 days. So just wanted to show a visual here of how small that window is, and you could see that rapid increase there. So you've got that, you know, a small window there to impress someone and make them buy, you know, and get them interested in your brand and in your communications, and not scare them off with too many irrelevant emails. Then if we look at this by time of year, so this blue line here is the percent increase compared to average. So August and September below average in terms of unsubscribe rates, but then as we move into Black Friday and holiday, you've got a huge spike in unsubscribe behavior. And you know, thinking through this is likely people signing up for Black Friday deals or buying gifts. You know, their first time coming to your brand, looking for a deal or a last minute gift. You know, maybe they buy one time and then, you know, they get a couple emails from you and then they're done. They just want to tune out right away. So we're seeing huge increases in unsubscribes around holiday. And then again, interestingly, in May. So maybe those are people that you acquired over holiday that stuck around for a little bit and then had enough at that time. Can't really decipher, can only think about some hypotheticals there. That's my guess. It could be maybe like Mother's Day, thinking through like what sort of communications are going to spike at that time of year. And during holiday, it could also be customers that longtime customers of yours that are getting like static gift guides or just things that aren't relevant to them. And you know, as a consumer, if I've shopped a brand for a couple of years, I'm hoping that I'm going to get personalized communications because I've given so much information to the brand. And you know, if I start getting like irrelevant recommendations and offers, it's time for me to tune out. So I would likely unsubscribe at that time as well. So keep that in mind as we're going into holiday season now. Like that's when you're going to lose a lot of names on your list. So something to keep in mind as you think about your campaign strategy. And then lastly here, we're going to look at the unsubscribe rate by email type. So on the bottom, you're going to see a list of the most common triggers run within Bluecore. So you've got things on the left, like the behavioral abandon triggers. So cart abandon, browse abandon, search abandon. These are really relevant emails. Customer has just been on your site within hours. They've taken an action on your site and they're getting a really relevant email, right? They're getting the product or group of products that they just engaged with. So it's hyper relevant, not surprised there to see the unsubscribe rate so low. Moving a little further to the right, we're going to come back to post-purchase. If we look at price decrease, right, that's an awesome email to get. I looked at a product 16 days ago, let's say as an example, and I just got a notification that it's now significantly cheaper. So not surprised there to see that the unsubscribe rate there is low. You know, that's an awesome email to receive as a consumer. If we move all the way to the right, we're looking at the one-time sends. So these are the batch emails that brands are sending. Hopefully, if you're utilizing Bluecore for your one-time sends, these do have a level of personalization within them, either in the segment that you're sending to or in the content and product recommendations featured within that email. So under 0.2% under 0.2% there, which is, you know, totally fine in terms of industry-wide unsubscribe rates. But post-purchase here, right, significantly higher than anything else. Just again, another reminder of that one-time buyer problem. These are people perhaps that bought for the first time on deal. They got the welcome offer and they took advantage of that. And then, you know, they made their purchase. They don't really have an intention of buying again. And perhaps the emails that they received after that purchase just weren't doing it for them. That is a huge opportunity to personalize messaging there. You know what they bought, you know what they're most likely to buy next by using the Bluecore product recommendation strategy. So that those should be hyper relevant emails to customers. But for some reason, people who buy just have a much higher likelihood to unsubscribe from that post-purchase email. And that's going to, on average, go out like a week after they made that order. So something to think about there. But yeah, I think it's helpful to know across the board which emails are, you know, the main culprits, and I'd encourage you guys to log into your dashboards and see which emails are causing the most unsubscribes out of your whole program, and work to optimize those with a lot of the strategies that we'll talk through in a little bit. So moving over to the fun part of this, right? So Christy from our data insights team put together a cohort analysis to try to quantify the cost or the revenue lost from each unsubscribe that retailers are dealing with. So what we did was we compared two different cohorts of customers that have made a purchase in the past. We then saw when they unsubscribed and then monitored their behavior after that unsubscribe date. So we were able to compare a group of customers that had unsubscribed versus a group of customers that are still opted in. And what we see is that the rate of purchase significantly drops for those that unsubscribe. So I think a great way that Christy thought about visualizing this is by extrapolating this over a 6-month period and looking at about 10,000 people who unsubscribe. So over 6 months, retailers who see 10,000 people unsubscribe can expect to lose 3,584 purchases as a result of that. When you put some dollars behind it, if we look at retailers with both an AOV of $50 and an AOV of $100, right, you're seeing an $18 per unsubscribe loss in revenue for retailers with an AOV of 50, and then that's going to double, obviously, for retailers with an AOV of $100. So if we look at those 10,000 customers, right, these are big numbers here. That's $180,000 for retailers with an AOV of 50 and close to $360,000 for retailers with an AOV of $100. So significant revenue losses here for every 10,000 customers. So when you think about that, depending on the size of your list, hopefully this, scares you a little bit, right? Every unsubscribe being at least $18 lost in potential revenue is really scary and should be a wake-up call to think about how to reduce that rate overall. So we'll talk through a few strategies to do so. So quick 5 tips to decrease your unsubscribe rate. We'll talk about these in a little detail. So we're going to talk through acquisition, right? The customers that you're acquiring, knowing that a lot of them are not going to purchase and that non-buyers make up majority of unsubscribes, we should really think about the quality of the customers that you're acquiring. And then we want to think about how you're nurturing those non-buyers, right? You've got your welcome series that may last a week or two. What are you doing with them after that? And how can you nurture non-buyers to make a purchase or to just stay on your list longer? We then want to look through your emails and identify the campaigns that have the highest unsubscribe rates and think about ways to decrease those. And a strong way to do that, or an easy way to do that, is to enable the likelihood to unsubscribe predictive filter that Bluecore has in our audience builder, and we'll talk through that. And then lastly, we want to consider the timing of how often and how many emails your customers are receiving. So with tip number 1, evaluating your acquisition and email capture strategy, like I said, knowing that the majority of unsubscribes are coming from non-buyers, you really need to think about your acquisition efforts, right? What types of customers are you bringing into your email program? And what is the value of those, right? So if this is if you're just looking for quantity, if you're bringing in tons and tons of new email addresses, that may have no indication on their value, right? You don't know that they're qualified or if they're of any value to your brand, right? You're just bringing names in. And that's probably why we're seeing so many of unsubscribes come from non-buyers. These are customers that probably aren't even in your target market or could use some refining, right, of who you're going after and who you're acquiring. And one way that we see brands do this really well is to leverage our predictive lifetime value audience filter to find groups of your best customers and push those to channels like Facebook and Google AdWords to run lookalikes against, to find really high quality prospects, those that look like your best customers, bid more for them, target them specifically in those channels. And the higher quality that you bring into your email program, the higher likelihood they have to make a purchase and to stay on your list for a longer amount of time. This also goes into how you're capturing those actual email addresses, right? So when I go to mostly any brand today, there's a huge pop-up, like a full screen takeover with a welcome offer. Sometimes you can't even see any products without getting through a few of those flows. So again, that's going to affect the quality of emails that you're capturing. So consider targeting those offers or pop-ups based on where a customer is coming from, or if they've been on your site before. You can do a lot of unique things with Bluecore's email capture tool. You can set a lot of different rules to say, if they came from Facebook, then show them this creative, or if this is their 6th time on the site, let's maybe think about giving them an offer rather than treating everyone exactly the same, right? So the higher quality emails that you can bring to your site and capture, the higher engagement rates and purchase rates you're going to see from those new prospects. You then want to think about how you can communicate with these people, right? So you've got them on your list. For the first time, they're going to get a couple welcome emails from you, maybe an offer, maybe not an offer. But from there, like what happens after your welcome flow, right? When I talk to our clients, they're mostly falling into the batch promotional email flows that are likely causing these high unsubscribe rates for non-buyers. So what we like to think about is setting up journeys for these non-buyers, right? So instead of just sending them like site-wide deals or irrelevant communications, we want to take them through a journey based on where they are. So we first like to think about driving product discovery for non-buyers. So for customers that have browsed products on your site, it's a really easy way to leverage that data to personalize emails for them. So you can think about showing them the top rated styles or products based on what they browsed, the newest arrivals based on what they browsed, or even if they looked at a product that's out of stock, and when that comes back into stock, or when a similar product comes back into stock, you can send them an alert letting them know like, hey, come back, check out these, discover some new products. And we find this works really, really well. It's really relevant, it's timely and personalized rather than, those batch and blasts that you may be sending out today. So from there, and as customers start to click through and browse more and more products on your site, you can start to establish even more interest, right? So you can send them inspiration guides or buying guides, customer reviews. As customers are moving down that funnel to make their first purchase, it's really important here to establish your brand and why they should buy from you rather than a competitor. And I think there were a few furniture brands that did this really, really well and ultimately got me to buy, a couch or a coffee table from them, rather than just, like Wayfair is really good at just page-long email of just a lot of different products where, I wanted something tailored to me and my situation. So nurturing customers to get them more comfortable with your brand. And then ultimately, you come in with conversion triggers, right? So price decrease notifications or personalized offers, or if I have some products in my cart that are low inventory, right? Let me know about that, drive some urgency and help seal the deal to get that first purchase. So think about establishing one of these journeys for the new customers that you've acquired and take them through this. And you'll see much higher engagement rates and much higher first purchase rates and more revenue, which is everyone's goal, right? We then want to think about looking at your email campaign on a macro level, right? Start prioritizing which campaigns are the biggest offenders when it comes to unsubscribe rates. You can just like create a laundry list, sort them by the highest rate, and then you can start to prioritize. And you can play with a few things. So one, you can play with the subject lines and the product recommendation strategies within those emails to make sure that they're optimized, they're relevant, right? If you have a customer's name, or if you can include the category that they have the highest affinity towards within the messaging and the content, you can make those much, much more relevant. And you can also think about the timing and the frequency. So within Bluecore's Experience Designer tool, you can split your campaigns by buyer types. So knowing that non-buyers are, the most likely to unsubscribe, maybe they get a special version of your post-purchase of your, no, that wouldn't make sense, of your abandoned cart trigger or your product browse trigger. Think about messaging people based on their life cycle stage or how many times they've bought from you and changing it up with this new information that you've learned. So that's just a great way to go through your campaign, see which ones are the top offenders, and then systematically work through those. And I'd encourage you to lean on your customer success manager to help you there. But really easy wins to get there, and then check back 2 or 3 weeks after making some changes and see if you've made an impact on that unsubscribe rate. Another really easy thing that you can enable is the use of our likelihood to unsubscribe predictive filter. So as you can see in the screenshot, all of you will have access to filters that's going to segment customers by their likelihood to unsubscribe It's going to bucket them either into a low, medium, or high likelihood level. And ideally, you should think about only emailing customers with a low or medium likelihood to unsubscribe. And since these models run every night, it's going to be, in a really close relationship with the customer, how many emails they've received recently, and the activities that they've taken on site, and as well as the types of purchases that they've made. So as customers move from low to medium to high and back to medium, right, your triggers are going to update in time with that. So I'd encourage you to, again, pair this with the campaigns that are causing the highest unsubscribe rates and pull out customers with a high likelihood to unsubscribe. Wait for them to fall into a lower medium bucket, and then they'll fall back into your email stream. This, of course, would be automated. It runs every night. The audience builder is going to refresh every day. So you should be good there in terms of a workflow perspective. And then what you can also think about is pushing customers with a high likelihood to unsubscribe over to Facebook, right? So that's a great channel to, again, you can personalize messages to them within Facebook. You don't email them, so you lower the risk of them unsubscribing, but you're still able to communicate with them on a one-to-one basis. And then lastly, timing, right? So I'd encourage you to look at your unsubscribe rates over time. And like we saw on the average level, we saw during holiday is when that peaks. So I'd encourage you to look and identify the biggest times of risk for your brand, both based on the calendar and based on how long after someone opts in do they unsubscribe, or how long after a purchase does someone unsubscribe. And knowing that, you can then change how you trigger messages and how you communicate with customers. Maybe you take a week off of emailing someone if like day 36 to 43 is our danger zone. Maybe you want to just like cool down the email cadence there. So just some things to think about when it comes to timing and how you can use that in conjunction with all the other strategies here to decrease your unsubscribe rate. So the main takeaways here being non-buyers are making up majority of unsubscribes. And I don't think it's too surprising, but I think it's refreshing to know that you've got a small window, right? 50 days. You should be thinking about deploying specific strategies for non-buyers to keep them engaged, to keep them clicking through your emails, and all with the goal of getting that first purchase and keeping them on your list for as long as you can. And then keeping in mind, though, that when people do make a purchase, they're still have a tendency to unsubscribe, and that's going to be 70 days after you've identified them. And so I would think about using the strategies like personalization in terms of the content, the timing, as well as the predictive filters, especially that likelihood to unsubscribe filter. Just if this is an issue for you, this filter should really help you reduce that unsubscribe rate substantially. And of course, one more thing, just keeping in mind that these audiences through Bluecore's integration with Google and Facebook, you can push audiences to these channels and they can be used in a number of different ways, but think about taking just a list of your unsubscribed high value customers. So pairing your predictive lifetime value filter with that opt-in status, and think about trying to get customers to resubscribe or at least engage with your brand, right? Get them to click through the site, and hopefully they'll resubscribe, because we know that there's a huge value to having a customer on your list. It's very, very cheap to market to people through email rather than these paid media channels. So getting some budget to invest in re-communicating with your high value unsubscribed customers on a channel like Facebook or Instagram can be immensely valuable. So something to think about, and we're happy to help you strategize how you can do this and different examples of other retailers that have. Cool. So really enjoyed sharing a lot of the work that our data and insights team has conducted here. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to dive into your data a little bit, and would really encourage you to work with your customer success manager on identifying the triggers or the email campaigns that have your highest unsubscribe rates, and then working through those one by one to decrease that rate. As we saw, every unsubscribe is at least $18 and even higher for those of you with a higher AOV. So you can really make an impact here and look like a rock star by decreasing that rate. So we look forward to hearing more from you guys, and I think we'll take some questions now. But thanks again.